Hello, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Sam. Today we're talking about test proctoring in the public library, and this webinar focuses mainly on the UNC system. If you have any questions, I do at the end have a link that will provide more information, and I also have my email at the end as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. The agenda for today, we're going to talk about students, faculty, and proctors, becoming a proctor, professors, the requirements, what disqualifies a candidate from being a proctor, the proctoring environment, equipment and its space, exam information, pre-exam preparations, administering an exam, and the benefits of using a public library proctor. So as far as students are able to schedule exam appointments with a qualified proctor. We will talk about how to become a qualified proctor in the webinar. Find proctors near you. You can invite qualified individuals to become proctors for the UNC online system, and some campus and instructor restrictions may apply. So as far as faculty, they're able to verify the proctors have been approved by UNC Online by checking the website. They can view their students' exam appointments and securely provide proctors with instructions and exam materials. And again, some campus restrictions may apply. On this next slide here, we're going to talk about proctors. They're able to manage their appointments. You can block out dates if you're going to be unavailable. You can receive exam instructions and materials through your online account. You're able to finalize completed exams. And finalize means after a student completes an exam, you log in the time and any notes to show the student completed their exam. And they're able to maintain your proctoring license and information, which is done yearly. Okay, let's talk about how to become a proctor. Members of the University of North Carolina online proctoring network must meet a set of qualifications and follow specified guidelines to be an approved participant in the vital network of proctors. So some qualifications listed are as follows. Official testing centers at an accredited college, university, or military post. Librarians at a public library or at an accredited college or university. College professional testing center staff or administrators. Professional learning tutoring centers. K through 12 counselors, testing coordinators, must be primarily responsible for testing administration at the applicant school or school system. A U.S. Embassy education officer or a military base or station education officer, and also a U.S. military non-commissioned officer in charge or officer in charge of a student's military unit. So any of those are qualified to become a proctor. As far as professors, professors cannot charge a proctoring fee for students enrolled in your classes. There is a conflict of interest policy with regards to using university space and resources for fee-related services. So this must be additionally approved by the designated UNC Online campus contact. The following will disqualify a candidate from being a proctor. You cannot be a relative, spouse, or partner, a coworker, supervisor, or business associate. There cannot be any relation to the student, a friend, roommate, or peer of the student, current or previous athletic coach, trainer, administrator, or any member of an athletic staff or personnel who supports student athletes, including K through 12 recreational and or organized leagues, community college or college and university athletics. K through 12 employees who are not counselors, testing coordinators whose primary responsibility is testing administration at your school or school system. A UNC system student, and anyone who cannot provide a verifiable professional email address. So Gmail, Hotmail, or Yahoo are not acceptable forms of email. It must be edu or .gov. Anyone who cannot provide a computer with internet access for up to 3 hours, and some exams take a little more than 3 hours. And this policy is not intended to be exhaustive and is subject to change with or without notice. And UNC Online reserves the right to deny any proctor license application. So these are just a few. It just depends on the situation. So let's talk about the proctoring environment. The location, space, and layout of the proctoring location are vital to the accomplishment of its mission. At the proctoring location, the proctor must anticipate outside factors that could divert the attention of examinees and take action to avoid them. So you should consider room temperature. I know some facilities, such as our library, you cannot control your temperature, but if you are able to, attempt to correct as needed. Ensure adequate lighting. Provide adequate test rooms and space for given volume. Provide seating and writing surfaces appropriate for the test volume and test materials, such as ADA and other special requirements. Examinees should be seated in order to limit their view of others' work. A lot of times students are taking the same exam, so you want to try to separate the two if possible. Check the facility to ensure readiness for testing, and you should always have a backup plan in case of emergency or a problem, if possible. Ensure adequate parking is available and ADA requirements are met, if possible. I know like our facilities are being upgraded, so some things you just do the best you can. Equipment and space. So personal laptops. Students may take an exam on a personal laptop if close and constant supervision is provided by the proctor, and if the test instructions specifically allow for such. In the absence of a specific permission to use a personal laptop, the proctor must not allow its use. So it is up to the instructor. Sometimes the instructor will allow it, and sometimes they won't. But you will get that information through your instructions. Faculty members cannot require or request for proctors to download special software, such as Respondus Lockdown Browser for exam appointments. I have several students that requires the lockdown browser, but that is when they bring their own laptops, and that is understood. Hardware and software requirements for computerized testing will be set at a basic level that allows usage by multiple testing programs. Proctoring space may be utilized by multiple examinees, either simultaneously or at different times as desired by proctoring centers, provided that exam requirements meet basic standards for its use and proctoring centers comply with given instructions. So you will receive specific instructions so that you know what you can and cannot do from the instructor. So let's talk about some pre-exam preparations. You should always download your exam materials at least 1 to 2 business days prior to the exam appointments, and store the exam materials in a secure location because sometimes time is running short and you want to be able to have that information ahead of time. Perform check of proctoring facilities and equipment for operating condition and security. So check restrooms for feasible use. They may want to use your facilities while they're there. Ensure that all necessary equipment is in proper working order. Complete the necessary forms and prepare scratch paper packets. I always keep scratch paper available. Sometimes the student is not able to bring that information with them. So I always keep some scratch paper if needed. Communicate necessary information to examinees, including faculty instructions to the student. If your facility charges a fee, make sure to collect that fee. Our particular library does not charge a fee. We only charge for copies if someone makes a copy. But as far as our proctoring service, it is free. And request that the examinees be prepared to leave unnecessary personal items, including cell phones and iPods, in their car, don't bring that type of information into the testing site. Okay, so let's talk about some exam information. The proctor will keep the exam secure and confidential at all times. Once a proctor has agreed to proctor an exam, the instructions and exam materials will be available through UNC Online Exam Proctoring. The proctor will also receive system-generated reminders about upcoming exam appointments from UNC Online Exam Proctoring. So that is why you need a professional email, so that it would have to be either a UNC, it should be a .gov or a .edu, because you will receive the information through your email. Exam appointment information automatically appears in a proctor's appointment schedule immediately after a student schedules an exam. So anytime a student goes on through the system and schedules an exam, it immediately comes to my email, and I am aware of how many exams I would be proctoring that day. 4 days prior to the opening of the exam window, exam materials and exam passwords automatically appear for download in a proctor's appointment schedule. And immediately if a student schedules their exam appointment within an active exam window. Proctors must download exam materials at least 1 to 2 business days prior to the appointment. If a download error occurs or questions arise, there will be time for the proctor to reach out to the faculty member. So that is why it's important to go ahead and do that early. All right, so let's talk about some other things here. Okay, administering the exam. So you should admit and sign in examinees according to exam instructions, collect required forms, and check the identification of the examinee. So they should bring a picture ID with them when they come. Abide by given instructions and read any instructions clearly and verbatim that the professor has sent to you. You should observe the examinees without being obtrusive. If you suspect any kind of, if you have any questions, you should call your faculty member immediately. You should manage and report irregularities when they occur. If you suspect academic integrity, anything of that sort, do not approach the student. Just permit the student to complete the exam. Do not confront them. If possible, ask a coworker to witness the suspected academic integrity. Save any type of information you can. If your location records exam appointments, or provide footage of the appointment. But there will be a place when you finalize the appointment imperative to do not approach the student, but just record any information into the finalized section of the proctoring information. Also, assure that all necessary equipment is in working order. Of course, again, make sure you complete necessary forms and any scratch paper and packets that are needed. provide that information. Obtain testing materials. Instructors are highly encouraged to post exam, of course, 4 days prior to start date. Communicate any necessary information to the examinee. Request that examinees leave unnecessary personal items such as cell phones, iPods, any of that kind of information behind in the car. If they accidentally bring it in, just put it on your desk until they are able to leave. And again, just make sure you collect their photo information. Just have them to provide their license or school ID, anything to identify who they are. The examinee, again, should present their legible photo ID. Ask the examinee to put all unnecessary items and turn off their cell phone before they hand it to you. I require that you have a check-in so that you will know exactly who they are. Show them where to sit, of course. The examinee should be seated in a location that limits their view of others, if possible. The examinee should not be seated in an area obscured by columns, shelves. You need to be able to see what they're doing during the exam. Read the exam instructions verbatim. If there's any dispute, just contact the instructor. And ask the examinee to log into their Blackboard or Moodle or whatever system that they're using. And then that's how they actually get the exam started. Once you log them in, the examinee is not to see their password, because this is very important. If they have the password, they're able to pass it on to friends or others that might not have taken the exam. So that's why it's very important to do not let the examinee see the password. If the examinee does not need the keyboard, I usually just sort of put it to the side so that it's out the way. And in the event that the exam needs to be reset, just make sure you have the contact information of the instructor, because that is very important. Either have their email address, or sometimes the instructor will specifically leave his or her telephone information. So be able to get that information reset for the student. You should monitor the examinee during the exam. Try to keep the examinee in your field of vision. If proctoring for more than one examinee, quietly just circulate through the area to make sure that they're exactly where they should be. Anticipate outside factors that may divert the attendee, the examinee. Take action to avoid it. Be cognizant of the examinee's time limit. Some tests are timed, but sometimes you may have a paper exam, and you need to be mindful of the examinee's time limit. Only the instructor may make changes to an exam. So if there's a problem with an exam, again, make sure that you have that information to contact the instructor. Okay, and you should always collect all exam materials, including scratch papers. So if you provided scratch paper during the exam, make sure you collect that back from the student. Make sure the examinee's name is on all of the exam materials. If the examinee borrowed any materials, of course, have them to return it. And it's very important at the end to use the finalize action. So what you'll do is you go into the UNC system, and there is a finalize state that you must make sure that you record their test, time that they started, time that they stopped, and if there's any questions for the instructor, that is when you put that information in. But that is very important. If you do not finalize the exam, then it shows that the student has not taken the test. So that is one very important information to remember. Make sure that the examinee has necessary testing materials noted on their instructions. Return the exam according to instructor's directions. So sometimes you will have to fax the exam back. Sometimes you'll have to email it. So you can scan it and upload it through the UNC system, or you can scan and upload it to their email. But the instructor will give you specific instructions on how they want to have it returned. So just follow directions for computer and paper-based exams that are listed. To prevent the examinee from using websites during the paper portion, just like I said earlier, I usually just set the mouse and the keyboard off to the side so that there won't be any problems. And then you just return the paper-based portion of the exams according to the instructor's directions. And I'm going to go over a couple best practices, things to remember, some things that we specifically do at the Gaston County Public Library. So as far as availability, our exams are administered by appointment only, and it must be arranged in advance. This just helps as far as space limitations and the availability, to make sure the availability of the test is being able to give it to you in time. The library does not guarantee the availability of a proctor, so that is why it is important to have the student schedule the exam in advance. And the library agrees to provide a reasonable quiet space. With it being a public library, there's only sometimes there's programs going on, things going on, so you just have to explain to the student that you do the best you can. But that is, again, making sure that they arrange in advance is very important. The library we do proctor both written and online exams. So just make sure when you have the student, make sure that you will have that space available, because we do both the written and the computer exams. And the student must make arrangements. Like I said, that's very important before time. They're required to, again, show their picture ID and enforce the written time limits. Those are very important things to remember when administering your exams. So I put a few interesting things up here. The benefits of using a public library proctor. Well, first, we're professionally trained. We welcome inclusion, so all testers are welcome. Most libraries do not charge a fee. Ours in particular, we do not charge a fee. We're technology supported, so we have internet access as well as Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Some of their tests do require these things. And we have had great success with our proctoring. We've had students that are haven't had any problems, and they really appreciate our services. So I think it's very rewarding if you do decide to become a proctor. It's just being able to reach out and help those students that are trying to take online classes, and without having to pay a big, huge fee. So I think being a public library proctor is a very rewarding thing to be. And so hopefully you'll decide to do that.